Now, in this lecture, we are going to discuss the third design issues related to the distributed file system. And the third issue is the writing policy. Writing policy is it decides when a modified cache block, which is done by the client at the client side, when it should be transferred to the server side, because the client has requested for a certain file, and using that file it might be possible that made certain modification, and that modification has to be written back to the server to maintain the consistency among the information related to that file. So we have two policies, conventional policies. One is write through policy, and another is the delayed writing policy. The simplest policy is the write through policy, in which all the writes which are requested by the application at the client sides are also carried out to the server side immediately. Whatever changes is being done on the client side, immediately the same changes has to be reflected on the server side also. Of course, it may have certain advantage that write through policies seems to be very reliable, and even though in the event of the client is going to crash, very little information is going to be lost. However, this kind of policy, if it is adopted for the cache is concerned, it is not taking the advantage of the caching. The purpose of caching is going to be off if we are going through the write policy. So we have an alternate policy, and that policy is delayed writing policy. In the delayed writing policy, the whatever is being modified at the client side is delayed, or it is being reflected on the server side after a certain delay. So the reflection which at the server side is going to happen, it is going to happen after a certain delay in the delayed writing policy. So this approach is a little bit advantageous as far as the cache performance is concerned, because if we do that after making many writes, then only the block which is present on the client side should be transferred to the server side. Another advantage of this particular policy is that while writing anything, while doing certain computation, the client may be generating certain kind of intermediate results, and those intermediate results may not be necessary to be reflected on the server side. So in this case, delayed writing policy, only the main content, the main result, whatever is being written at the client side, has to be reflected on the server side. Now, in the delayed writing policy, the factor that needs to be taken into the account that has to be taken into the account about deciding the delay period, that what will be the delay period. This policy has the advantage of all the advantages which the cache used to have at the client side, because it is also but it is going to give the reliability problem, because if we are using delayed writing policy, and anytime the client is going to crash, a significant amount of the data may be lost, and it will not be reflected on the server side. So we have another writing policy which that includes the delay. So that writing policy delays the updating of the file at the server until that third policy is that delay on the updation on the file at the server side until the file is closed at the client side. Now, in this policy, the main factor which comes across is the traffic to the server, the traffic at the server, because it depends upon the average period that the file are going to be open on the client side. And if this average period for which the files are open, if it is short, then the policy does not going to give benefit from the delaying the updates. In other words, or on the other hand, if the average period of the file for which it is being open on the client side, this policy is going to be in a susceptible condition, because the losing of the data in the event of the client crash can happen. So this is the third design issue related with the distributed file system. The fourth one is the cache consistency. Well, cache consistency came into the picture when the multiple clients cache. Multiple clients are going to cache the information in the form of a file, and they are modifying this shared data. So the cache consistency problem is going to arise. So just to guarantee the consistency among the data which has been cached at the different sites of the client, we have two approaches so that the data which is returned to the client is going to be valid. The first one is the server initiated approach, and the second one is the client initiated approach. In server initiated approach, the server is going to inform the cache managers whenever the data in the client's cache becomes old, becomes stale. And now it is the duty of the cache manager at the client side that has to retrieve a new data and invalidate that particular blocks containing the old data at its own cache. So in the case of server initiated, server take the initiative, and server has to maintain the information that how many clients are there to whom the information has been cached, and then server is going to inform to the individual cache managers of the individual clients. The second approach is the client initiated approach, in which it is the responsibility of the cache manager of the client to validate the data with the server before it is returning it to the client. So in the first approach, server takes the initiative. In the second approach, client is going to take initiative. In the first approach, server is going to inform about the data is invalid or valid. In the second case, whenever in the second case, the client is going to approach the server that whatever data is available in its cache, is it validate, is it updated or not? If it is not so, then it again asks the server to give the data. Now both these approaches, server initiated and the client initiated approach, seems to be a little bit expensive, as they require a very significant collaboration in between the server and the cache managers. As well as another disadvantage is the communication cost is very high. The server initiated approach requires the server to maintain a reliable records that what are the data blocks which are cached at the different cache managers. As well as the client initiated approach, simply it is going to negate the benefit of having a cache by checking the server to validate the data. Every time it has to check and validate the data. So every time it has to go to the server and ask for that. So it is also going to have a problem related with the scaling also, because by doing this, the load on the server is going to be increased in the individual cases. Client is going to check many times, so the client checking increases, and the client checking is in the increasing order. And if the number of clients are increasing, then there will be more checking of the clients on the server side. So we have a third approach, which is not going to allow file caching when the concurrent write sharing is going to occur. Uh, in this approach, cache consistency is simply done by not allowing the file caching when the concurrent write sharing occurs. In concurrent write sharing, a file might be open at the multiple clients, and at least one client has opened it for writing purpose. So in this approach, the file server has to keep the track related to the clients who has been sharing the file. So when a concurrent write sharing occurs for a particular file, the file server informs all the clients to suspend, to purge their cached data items belonging to that particular file. Or the other method may be that concurrent write sharing can be this can be avoided by locking the files. Now, another issue to be addressed is the sequential write sharing. Another issue that is related with the cache consistency scheme. Uh, it needs to address the sequential write sharing also, which occurs when a client is going to open a file